Today we're going to talk about slope. We've talked about, right before the break, we talked about putting lines on graphs. Here we're going to talk about slope. Slope tells you the rise over the run, like what kind of angle this is. Hey, if you ever go drive in the mountains, you'll see a sign that says steep slope. Suicide has a steep slope. Right? And that's just the angle of the line. Defined slope, it's defined as rise over run. You need to memorize that, which is just rise is the vertical change, your change in the y, versus your run, which is the horizontal change. Right? Here, how much does it change up or down? Here, how much does it change to the right or left? And we always think of slope in terms of going to the right. Right? It makes it easier if you think it's going to the right. So you need to draw this. Here they're just asking you to find the slope of a skateboard ramp. And they tell you it is 54 inches long and 15 inches tall. To find the slope, it's defined as rise over run. Yeah, you have to write that. Rise over run, your rise, how much did it change vertically? 15 inches. Right, it went up 15 inches. It went to the right, or in this case it could go left, but it is 454 inches long. So that's our slope, 15 over 54. Now what you do is you reduce this. I can divide both of these by 3. I get 5 over 18. And that's my slope. My slope is usually going to be a fraction. If it's not a fraction, you can make a fraction. But here it's just a fraction. 5 over 18. What this means is that for every 5 inches it goes up, it goes 18 inches to the right. Right? But this is how you would find slope. Alright, you need to write find slope, and then I'm going to give you graph paper and you're going to draw this line. Alright, find slope, they'll ask you to find slope of a graph or find slope of a line. And this will be important because tomorrow we'll talk about putting this into equation, how to make a line out of finding a slope. So, easiest thing to do is just look, and we always go to the right if possible. But look, how far does this go up? And then how much does it go to the right? So to find the slope, I look at what is the rise and what is the run. Well, Jaden, what would be the rise here? How far does this go up? If it starts here at 3 on the y and ends at 6, what would be the rise? 3. It went up 3, good. Alan, if it started here at 4 on the x and went to 8 on the x, how far did it go to the right? 4. So my slope is 3/4. Okay, because it went up 3 and over 4. So that is my slope. Any questions about that? Alright, you need to draw this line. So find the slope here. So if I think of it going to the right, then that means this goes down and to the right. Right? So what would be my rise here? Camden?
I'm thinking.
Okay, well, let's look. It goes from here to here. So it went 1, 2, 3, 4. So would this be positive 4 or be negative 4?
Negative 4.
Negative 4. It went down 4. If your rise is negative 4, it means it went down 4. Your run, right, we always think to the right because we want to keep it positive. So it went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it went down 4 over 6, which this reduces to negative 2/3. That is your slope, negative 2/3. Right? What you have to realize and why you have to make the run negative is that if it's a negative slope, it's always going down and to the right. If it's a positive slope, it's always going up and to the right. So it's important that your slope is, that you know if your slope is positive or if it's negative. Alright, you need to write this down. Now, instead of putting slopes or lines on a graph, what they'll do is they'll just tell you what points they go through, like this. It'll just say it passes through these 2 points. To find the slope just off this, Now you can put it on a graph, but if a graph's not available, what you do is you use this formula right here, which to define rise over run, we find it as y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. What that does is it finds the change in y over the change in x. What you need to do, though, before you do that is label your x and y coordinates. You need to figure out which one's your first point, which one's your second point. Your first point is going to be labeled x1, y1. The 1 would be for the first point. Then you say, well, this other one's the second point, so it would be labeled as x2, y2. You have to keep those together. You can't flip-flop. What a lot of students do is they just start plugging in numbers of this, and they don't make sure that they're putting them in the right order. It has to be in the right order, in a specific order. Has to be done just like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say this is x1, so that would make 3y1, because that's the first point. Which would make 4 your x2, and that would make -1 your y2. And then you just plug them in the formula of y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. y2 is -1, right? And you don't look at what the numbers are, you just, until you get to that point. y2 was -1, then you write minus, it's always minus. y1 is 3. And then you go x2, which is 4, and you write minus because it's x2 minus x1. And then you write what x1 is. x1 here is -2. So you have to have 4 minus -2. What some students do is they'll just write 4 minus 2. That's not the same as 4 minus -2. You're supposed to subtract those two coordinates. -1 minus 3 is -4. 4 minus -2. Two negative signs make a positive. So I just add those. I get 6. So my slope here, when I reduce that, is -2/3. Alright. Any questions? Find slope of the line that passes through these points, -4, 3, and 1, 2. I'm going to show you that it doesn't matter which one's the first point, which one's the second point, because I'm going to say this one's going to be my x2, y2. I'm going to call this one x1, y1. If you've already labeled them opposite, that's fine. It doesn't change your answer. It doesn't matter which one's the first point and which one's the second point. What matters is that if -4 is x2, then 3 has to be y2. 2 cannot be y2. You can't flip-flop those. You have to keep those together. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 is the formula for slope. y2 we decided was 3 minus y1 is 2. x2 was -4 minus x1, which was 1. 3 minus 2 is 1. -4 minus 1 is -5. So there's your slope, -1/5. Now if I had flipped those numbers, if I had changed these, you would still get the same thing. So it doesn't matter. You'd actually get -1/5, but the same thing. Any questions? I'll do that. All right, what you need to do is write these 2 points down, and you also need to draw this on your graph. Now, there's a reason why I put this on here, and I put a graph so you can see what it looks like. If they just gave you these 2 points, if you decide, it doesn't matter again which one's which, this is x1, y1, so this is going to be x2, y2. Solve for the slope, that's what's asking you to do. So you go 4 minus 4 over 2 minus -3. You get 0 over 5. But that's not what your slope is. Right? It's not 0 over 5. Do you know what it would be? What we would say your slope is? Can I put your picture there? It is 0. If 0 is the numerator, if 0 is on top, your slope is 0. Make sure you write that down. Slope equals 0. If 0 is on top, it is a slope of 0, which you can see, this is what this looks like. Because rise was 0, does it go up or down? Does this line go up or down? No, it just goes straight across. This is a horizontal line. Horizontal lines have a slope of 0. Right? And it doesn't really matter what the run is. It could be 5, it could be 10, it could be 1. It's always going to just be going to the right. So your slope is always going to be 0. That's a horizontal line. Any questions about that? All right, you need to put those 2 points, or write down those 2 points. You also need to draw this graph. Here it's a little different. Okay? They give you a point, so let's just go ahead and label our x1, y1, x2, y2. Do that every time. Okay? You're required to write out the points they give you, label them x1, y1. You're required to write out the slope, the formula for slope, and then plug in those numbers. So 1 minus, or sorry, it should be 0 minus 3 over 1 minus 1. So that gives you negative 3 over 0. So what would I write for my slope?
3, negative 3.
No.
0.
It is not 0. Because if I wrote slope of 0, a slope of 0 is a what kind of line? What did I say? A horizontal. Is this a horizontal line? No, this is a vertical line, right? Vertical. So how could I say it has a slope of 0? Can't. But could it be a slope of negative 3? No. So here's what we write for this. Right? We don't write slope of 0. We don't write any number. Here's what we write. We write that the slope is undefined. Because you cannot divide by 0. If you try to divide by 0 in a calculator, if you want to try negative 3 divided by 0, it'd say error. You can't divide by 0. Right? Because the bottom number defines the fraction. The example I give is pizza. If it was, like, let's say the denominator is 8. That means that 8 slices make one pizza. If you have a total of 8 slices, you have what could be a pizza, right? Or if it says that 4 slices make a pizza. So if it's over 4, you have 1 slice, that's 1/4 of a pizza. If you have 4 slices, you have a full pizza. Well, how do you have a pizza if 0 slices make a pizza? Right? Does that make sense? Here, negative 3, let's just say that's 3. I got 3 slices, but 0 slices make a pizza. How many pizzas do I have? You don't have any, do you? Because you didn't define what a pizza is. You didn't define how many slices make a pizza. So this is the same thing. You didn't define what the slope is. So that's an undefined slope. A vertical line is an undefined slope. Right? A vertical line, a line that goes up or down, has an undefined slope. So if it's anything that has a 0 as a denominator, it's undefined. Does everybody understand that? Here's your homework for today.